Jake Paul had been in loud arenas, inside legendary boxing rings, and surrounded by flashing cameras his entire adult life. But today felt different. He wasn't here to fight. He wasn't here to provoke anyone. He was simply backstage at a massive MMA event in Las Vegas, invited as a celebrity guest, nothing more. With a camera in one hand and his drink in the other, Jake moved through the hallway humming casually, recording a vlog for his fans. The energy backstage buzzed with fighters warming up, pads smacking, coaches yelling instructions, and staff members rushing around with headsets. Jake was smiling, relaxed, completely unaware that trouble was already brewing, because while he was filming jokes for his vlog, several fighters were whispering his name with bitterness. 5 MMA champions, men who had dominated cages, broken records, and built reputations on raw brutality, were standing together inside a private locker room, complaining loudly about one thing: Jake Paul. "Dude disrespects the sport every time he talks," one champion growled. "He thinks knocking out retired fighters makes him legit," another added. "He needs to be humbled," a third one said, cracking his knuckles. It wasn't planned. It wasn't official. It wasn't scheduled. It was pure ego, anger, and pride, mixing together like gasoline ready to ignite. And Jake? He had no idea any of this was happening. He walked down the long backstage tunnel, nodding at staff, greeting fans, even shaking hands with a few young fighters who admired him. For him, it was just another chaotic but fun day in the world of combat sports. But then, he noticed something. A strange hush fell when he passed a cluster of trainers. 2 security guards looked at him, whispered, then quickly turned away. Even the air felt heavier. More serious. Jake lowered his camera slightly. "What's going on back here?" he muttered. But before he could figure it out, he stepped into a dimly lit hallway and immediately sensed danger. He wasn't imagining it. He wasn't overthinking. Something was wrong. Very wrong, and he was about to find out exactly why. Because around the corner, 5 MMA champions were waiting for him, fists clenched, tempers high, ready for a confrontation he never saw coming. Jake Paul stepped deeper into the hallway, and the further he walked, the quieter the world became. No coaches yelling. No gloves pounding against pads. No fans cheering. Just silence. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. The kind that warned you something was waiting ahead. Jake slowed his footsteps. His camera, still recording, captured the tension in his face, that subtle shift from casual confidence to alert curiosity. He looked over his shoulder, expecting to see someone following him, but the hall behind him was empty. Then he turned forward and froze, because right there, standing shoulder to shoulder like a wall of muscle and anger, were 5 MMA champions. Champions with belts, champions with reputations, champions who were used to being feared. And all 5 of them were glaring directly at him. Jake blinked. "What's this?" he muttered under his breath. The tallest fighter stepped forward, cracking his neck. So the YouTube boxer finally shows his face backstage. Another champion folded his arms. "You talk big online. Let's see if your mouth works in real life." A third one smirked. "Thought you were safe because you came here as a guest?" His voice dripped with mocking sarcasm. Jake tried to keep his tone light. Hey, relax. I'm just here to support the event. I didn't come to fight any of you." But they didn't move. Not an inch. It was like running into a pack of wolves who had already decided he was prey. The champion with cauliflower ears stepped forward. "You've been disrespecting MA for years. Calling our sport easy. Saying we're scared of you. Saying you can knock out anyone." Jake raised his hands calmly. "Look, I talk trash, yeah, but it's part of the show. It's entertainment. Don't take it personal." One fighter scoffed. "That's the problem. You think this is entertainment? We bleed for this." Jake's jaw clenched. He understood ego. He had built a career around provoking it, but this was different. This wasn't a press conference. This wasn't a Twitter beef. This wasn't controlled or monitored. These men were angry. And they were surrounding him. Slowly they tightened the circle, pushing him toward the center of the hallway. Jake swallowed. "Look, if we've got a problem, let's talk." "No need to." But they cut him off. "We're done talking." Jake's eyes flickered around. Where were security? Where were event staff? Where was anyone? Then it hit him. Someone had cleared out this hallway on purpose. This wasn't an accidental meeting. It was a setup. One champion jabbed a finger into Jake's chest. "You've embarrassed legends. You've mocked fighters who spent their whole lives in this sport." Jake brushed his hand away. "Don't touch me." The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop. "Oh? You don't like being pushed around?" The fighter smirked. "Good. You're about to feel something a lot worse." Jake's muscles tensed. He hadn't thrown a punch yet. But instinct was starting to kick in. The shortest champion stepped forward, the one with explosive footwork and a reputation for vicious takedowns. "You know what your problem is?" he said quietly, staring directly into Jake's eyes. "You think being a celebrity makes you untouchable." Jake inhaled slowly. "And you think ambushing someone proves you're tough?" A couple of bystanders down the hall peeked around the corner, phones already raised. Within seconds, whispers turned into murmurs. The tension was too big to ignore. Jake glanced at the growing crowd of cameras. Great. Another scandal for social media. He locked eyes with the fighters again. "I don't want trouble, seriously. You want to work something out? Let's set up official fights. I'll sign the contracts." The biggest champion barked a laugh. "Contracts? You think this is about money?" He stepped closer, his breath hot and angry. "This is about respect. And today, you're gonna learn some." Jake felt his pulse rise. But his voice stayed controlled. "You're all champions. And you're jumping one guy? That's what respect looks like." For a brief moment, the fighters hesitated. Just a second. Jake had hit a nerve, but then the hot-headed champion snarled, "Respect is earned, and we're about to take it from you." The fighters squared their stances, lungs tightened. Fists curled. The ambush was seconds away. Jake took one step back, setting his weight, ready to react. He scanned their footwork, their spacing, their body language. Years of boxing training kicked in like muscle memory. One fighter shifted his weight forward. Another raised his hands. A third clenched his jaw, preparing to strike. It was happening. And Jake was outnumbered 5-1. But one thing no one expected, not the crowd, not the champions, not even Jake himself, was how this fight would end. Before the first punch flew, Jake looked straight at the camera someone was holding and said, "This is crazy. But tell me one thing. Which country or city are you watching this from? Because what's about to happen, you won't believe it." And then, the first champion lunged. The moment the first champion lunged, the hallway exploded into chaos. Jake's instincts fired instantly. He slipped to the side, the punch whistling past his jaw by inches. The champion stumbled forward from the missed strike, surprised that Jake had reacted so fast. Jake didn't counter. Not yet. He didn't want to escalate. But these guys weren't giving him a choice. The second champion came in from the left, a spinning back fist aimed straight at Jake's temple. Jake ducked under it just in time, feeling the air slice over his head. "All right," Jake muttered. "You really want this?" The crowd at the far end gasped. Cell phones were fully raised now. Some spectators whispered excitedly, "No way. Are they really jumping him? He's done. 5 champions? He can't survive that." The fighters regrouped like trained predators. The heavyweight champion cracked his knuckles and charged. Jake planted his feet, slipped the punch, and the giant's fist smashed into the wall, sending vibrations through the hallway. Dust fell from the ceiling. Before Jake could move, the fourth champion shot in for a takedown, Fast, low, powerful. Jake sprawled, using pure instinct, dropping his weight to block the takedown just long enough to keep himself upright. But the champion clamped onto Jake's leg like a vice. Jake staggered backward, trying to wrench free. The fifth champion saw his opening, a brutal roundhouse kick aimed at Jake's ribs. Jake released the champion's grip and rolled to the right. The kick slammed into the shoulder of the takedown specialist instead. "Hey, watch it," the fighter yelled. "Move then." The kicker snapped back. Even in chaos, friction was forming between them. Jake got to his feet and raised his hands. "Last chance," he warned, voice steady. "Back off." But the champions weren't listening. They were too angry, too emotional, too committed. The short champion, the explosive one, darted forward again, feinting high and shooting low. Jake pivoted and landed his first strike of the fight, a quick, sharp jab to the nose. It snapped the champion's head back and sent him stumbling. The others froze for half a second. Jake had drawn blood, and now things were about to get much worse. "You little," the champion snarled, wiping his nose and seeing red on his fingers. He charged again, full speed, but Jake was ready. He popped him with another jab. Then another, then a cross. Bam! The champion collapsed to his knees, clutching his face. The rest of the champions roared and rushed forward in a frenzy. Jake backed up fast, heart pounding. Not from fear, from focus. His mind sharpened. Time slowed. This wasn't a boxing ring. This wasn't an organized match. This was survival. The big heavyweight swung again. A haymaker meant to take Jake's head clean off. Jake ducked under it. The giant staggered past. Jake countered with a liver shot. Fast, precise, devastating. UHH. The heavyweight folded like a tower collapsing in slow motion. He dropped to one knee, gasping. 2 down. 3 to go. The remaining champions hesitated now. They didn't expect resistance. They didn't expect intelligence. They didn't expect composure. One of them spat angrily. "Fight like a man. Stop running." Jake raised an eyebrow. "I just dropped 2 of you. How much more man you want?" The crowd hollered at that line. Phone zoomed in. The moment was turning into content, and the fighters knew it. Their humiliation was already being uploaded. And that only made them angrier. The 3 remaining champions circled Jake, one in front, one to his right, one behind him. Jake's pulse steadied. His breathing slowed. He scanned their footwork, their hand positions, their spacing. He wasn't panicking anymore. He was calculating. Because being outnumbered didn't mean being helpless. Sometimes being outnumbered just meant thinking faster. The champion behind him lunged first, grabbing for Jake's shoulders. Jake spun, slipping out of his grip, and smashed an elbow into his cheek. Crack. The champion dropped, dazed, struggling to stay conscious. 3 down. 2 left. The remaining champions looked at each other, suddenly realizing they were losing. To one man. One boxer. One YouTuber. Their pride burned hotter than ever. Both attacked at once. Jake braced himself. Stepping back into a defensive angle, he blocked the first punch. Slipped the second. Dodged the third. Then he delivered a brutal counter. A right hook that sent one fighter crashing into a metal locker door with a loud, metallic clang. Only one champion remained. He spit on the ground. Fury shaking his voice. "You're dead." Jake tightened his fists. "You had your chance." The champion charged, but before the final clash, Jake looked straight into the nearest camera and delivered his engagement moment. "If you were in my place right now, would you fight these guys or try to escape? Tell me in the comments. I want to see who's honest." The fighter reached him, and Jake's counterstrike unleashed a moment that would shock the entire MMA world. The final champion rushed Jake with pure fury, wild, explosive, reckless. This wasn't technique anymore. This was anger, embarrassment, desperation. He threw a looping right hand that could have knocked out a heavyweight. Jake slipped it by an inch. Not a foot. Not a step. An inch. Then came the left hook. Jake weaved under it, feeling the wind brush past his ear. The champion roared, swinging even harder, faster, sloppier. Jake stayed calm. Calmer than anyone in that hallway. Calmer than the man attacking him. Calmer than the screaming crowd recording every second. This was his world now. This was the rhythm he knew, chaos that slowed when his focus sharpened. He let the champion empty himself with big, pointless shots. Miss, miss, miss. Jake's shoes scraped against the floor as he circled around the fighter, cutting angles, measuring distance, waiting for that perfect opening. And then there it was. The champion overextended with a massive right hook. His ribs exposed, his balance off. Jake stepped in. A brutal left hook. Clean, precise, perfect. Thud. The champion staggered backwards, eyes wide, mouth open, breath gone. The crowd erupted. Nitrogen monoxide way. He rocked him. Jake actually dropped him. What is happening right now? Phones zoomed in closer. Jake didn't celebrate. Didn't smirk. Didn't taunt. He simply adjusted his stance, ready for the next attack, because this wasn't over. Not yet. The champion shook his head violently, trying to clear the ringing in his ears. He spat blood onto the floor and glared at Jake with fire in his eyes. You think you're beating me? His voice cracked with disbelief. Jake didn't blink. You tell me. The champion roared and rushed again, but now. Every move he made felt slow, predictable, telegraphed. Jake saw everything coming. Jab, slipped, a right cross, blocked, a knee attempt. Jake stepped out of range effortlessly. The champion grew more frustrated, swinging harder. Losing control. Jake countered again. A stiff jab straight into the nose. Pop. Blood sprayed. The fighter stumbled back, clutching his face, but Jake didn't stop. Another jab. Then another. Then a right hand that landed so clean, the sound echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. Crack. The champion's legs buckled. He wobbled, collapsed to one knee. The crowd screamed as if witnessing an impossible miracle. He's dropping champions. This is crazy. Jake Paul is outboxing 5 MMA champions backstage. The 4 fighters he had already dropped groaned on the floor, still trying to recover. The 5th, now on one knee, tried desperately to stand. Jake stepped forward, lowering his fists a little. Stay down, he warned softly. But pride. Pride is a dangerous thing. The champion forced himself back up, trembling, refusing to accept defeat. I'm not done, he growled. Jake exhaled through his nose. He admired the heart, but this needed to end. The champion threw one final desperate punch. Jake caught it with his glove, pulled the fighter slightly forward, and delivered a short right OOPPERCU to boom. Lights out. The champion fell flat on his back, arms spread, staring at the ceiling in shock as the last bit of fight left his body. 5 champions, all down, all beaten, all silenced. Jake Paul stood in the middle of the wreckage, chest rising and falling, sweat dripping, heart pounding but eyes focused. He wasn't cocky now. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't showboating. He just breathed deeply, looked at the 5 broken fighters around him, and said quietly, I didn't come here to disrespect MMA, but you shouldn't have tried to jump me. A stunned silence filled the hallway before the crowd erupted again. He beat all of them. Jake Paul is different. Bro, this is going viral immediately. 5 champions, and none of them could drop him. Phones dinged with notifications as clips started uploading online in real time. Security finally charged down the hallway. Too late to stop the fight. Medics rushed to the fallen champions. The fighters refused to look at Jake, not because of pain, but because of shame. And Jake? He simply stood there, hands on his hips, breathing in silence. For the first time that night, he wasn't the villain. He wasn't the clown. He wasn't the loudmou to H. For the first time, Jake Paul looked like a fighter who belonged. But this wasn't over, because someone very important was about to arrive. Someone who witnessed everything. Someone whose words would change everything that happened next. The hallway was still vibrating with shock. 5 the champions laid on the ground, groaning, humiliated, and Jake Paul stood in the middle like someone who had just walked out of a war zone. Security swarmed in, panicking. Medics knelt beside the fallen fighters. Phones were still recording from every angle. But even in all that noise, something changed. The crowd suddenly went silent, not because of fear, not because of shock, because someone was walking in, someone whose presence alone demanded respect. A calm voice broke through the chaos. Enough. Every head turned. Every camera lifted. It was Dana White. Hands behind his back, jaw tight, eyes locked on Jake. The medics froze. The fighters on the floor looked away. Security stopped shouting. Jake didn't move. Dana stepped forward slowly, scanning the entire scene, the knocked out champions, the shattered pride, the smear of blood on the wall, the crowd's frightened silence. The hallway felt colder now. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't angry, and that made it worse. He looked directly at Jake and said quietly, "You just beat 5 of my guys." Jake swallowed, lifting his chin. "I didn't start it." Dana nodded once. "I know." The crowd whispered. Dana continued walking until he stood shoulder to shoulder with Jake, staring at the chaos behind them. "You dropped them clean," he said. "Not cheap shots. Not sucker punches. Straight up. You outfought them." Jake didn't respond. He simply tightened his jaw. Dana took a slow breath, then turned toward the fighters still struggling to sit up. "You," he barked, pointing at them, "should be ashamed of yourselves." The crowd gasped. "You're champions, professionals. You don't jump a man backstage because of ego." He pointed again, harder. "And you don't swing at someone who is mindfully trying to avoid a fight." One fighter protested weakly. He disrespected. Dana cut him off. "Shut up. All of you." The hallway went silent again. Dana turned back to Jake, eyes sharp. "You want to know what the craziest part is?" His voice lowered. "You didn't just defend yourself. You looked composed, controlled, like someone who's been doing this for years." Jake exhaled slowly. "I trained for this. Every day." Dana nodded again. Then, for the first time, his expression softened. "Jake, I didn't believe you." His voice carried weight. "I didn't believe your boxing hype. I didn't believe your training. I didn't believe your discipline. I thought all of this was just YouTube energy." The crowd waited. Jake waited. "But what I just saw," Dana continued, "that was real. That was skill. That was pressure. And you handled it better than 5 trained fighters." Jake blinked, genuinely surprised. Dana stepped even closer. "Let me ask you something. Are you done proving yourself?" Jake frowned. "What do you mean?" Dana clasped his hands. "You've fought retired fighters, celebrities, influencers. You've had moments. But you want something real, don't you?" Jake stayed silent. Dana's voice dropped to a calmer, almost challenging tone. "Then fight one of mine." In the cage, the entire hallway exploded. "What? No way." Dana actually said it. He's offering Jake an MMA fight. This is history. Jake stared at Dana, processing the weight of his words. "You're offering me an actual UFC fight?" He asked slowly, almost disbelieving. Dana smirked. "Not just any fight. I want you against a real dog. A true contender. Somebody who won't underestimate you. Somebody who won't treat you like a joke." Jake's heartbeat thumped in his chest. Why? He asked. Donna raised an eyebrow. Because you earned it. Tonight, whether you wanted to or not. You proved something. Jake tightened his fists. And what's that? Dana answered without hesitation. That you belong in real combat. Not YouTube boxing. Not influencer events. The real thing. Jake looked down the hallway. The fallen champions, the crowd still filming, the medics whispering in disbelief. He inhaled deeply. For years people called him fake. A fraud. A clown. A kid playing fighter. But today, all 5 of those doubts were lying unconscious on the ground. He turned back to Dana. And who exactly? Jake asked slowly. Do you want me to fight? Dana stepped close enough that only Jake could hear. Then he whispered a single name into Jake's ear. Jake's eyes widened. The crowd leaned in. Desperate to know. Dana stepped back, smirking. Think about it, he said. But if you accept, I'll make it the biggest crossover fight in history. Jake didn't respond. He didn't need to, because his expression said everything. He wanted this. He wanted the challenge. He wanted the war. And for the first time ever, Jake Paul wasn't chasing respect. Respect was chasing him. The hallway was still buzzing with tension when Dana White walked away, leaving Jake alone with the weight of that whispered name echoing in his mind. A name that could change combat sports forever. Jake didn't speak. Didn't move. He just stood still, breathing deep. The noise around him fading into a distant hum. The 5 MMA champions, now patched up and furious, refused to look at him. Some glared. Some avoided his eyes entirely. But one thing was clear. Jake Paul had just done something nobody expected. He earned respect, even from those who hated him most. As security escorted him down the hallway, whispers traveled like wildfire. He's gonna do it. Is Jake really gonna fight him? There's no way. That's suicide. No influencer has ever stepped into a cage like that. Cameras flashed. Microphones appeared out of nowhere. Journalists ran after him like a stampede. Jake, what did Dana tell you? Are you joining the UFC? Is it true the fight is already in discussions? Did you knock out those champions intentionally? Jake didn't answer. His head was spinning, not from fear, but from the intensity of the moment, because Dana didn't whisper just any name. He whispered the name of a fighter known for violence, iron discipline, and zero tolerance for trash talk. A fighter whose stare alone drained confidence. A fighter undefeated in street fights and MMA. A fighter who once broke a man's ribs with a single body kick. A fighter the internet called the human guillotine. And Jake was being offered to fight him. The social media explosión by the time Jake reached the parking lot. The story had already blown up online. Clips from the hallway, him dropping the MMA champions one by one, had gone viral in minutes. Every major MMA page posted the footage. Jake Paul destroys 5 fighters backstage. Unreal. Dana White breaks silence. Jake proved something tonight. What name did Dana whisper? Fans go crazy. Twitter, chaos. YouTube, flooded. TikTok, non-stop edits of the knockdowns. Even retired fighters chimed in. Some mocked him. Some defended him. But nobody ignored him. For the first time, the entire combat world's eyes were locked on Jake Paul, and he felt it. The pressure, the fear, the adrenaline, the opportunity. He got into the SUV with trembling hands, not from fear, but from excitement. Jake's inner arm as the car drove away. Jake leaned his head back, staring at the roof, trying to make sense of everything. You okay? His coach asked quietly from the front seat. Jake didn't answer. His breathing was steady, but his thoughts were messy. 5 champions. 1 hallway. No preparation. No warm-up. No game plan. Just raw instinct. And he survived. He didn't win by accident. He didn't win because they slipped. He didn't win because they underestimated him. He won because he fought like someone who had something to prove, not to the world, but to himself. His coach turned around again. "Jake, what did Dana say to you?" Jake finally opened his eyes. He didn't whisper. He didn't hesitate. He said the name out loud for the first time. "He wants me to fight Razor Milan." The car went dead silent. His coach stared at him as if someone had told him the earth was flat. "Razor? Razor Milan? That's the guy he offered you?" Jake nodded slowly. His coach exhaled sharply, rubbing his forehead. "Jake, that's not a good idea." Jake looked out the window. "He thinks I can't handle it." "That's not what I said," his coach replied. "But man, Razor is a different breed. No influencer wants that smoke. Even top fighters avoid his weight class." Jake didn't blink. "Good," he said softly. "That means when I beat him, nobody can doubt me again." His coach froze. "Beat him?" Jake turned to look him in the eyes. "I'm done being treated like a clown. I'm done being told I can't fight. Tonight proved something." His coach leaned forward slowly. "And what's that?" Jake's voice was cold, steady, unshakable. "I'm not an influencer fighting fighters. I'm a fighter crushing influencers. And fighters. If you were Jake and Dana White offered you a fight with a dangerous undefeated MMA monster like Razor Milan, would you accept the fight or walk away? Type fight or nitrogen monoxide fight in the comments." As Jake's SUV turned onto the freeway, his phone buzzed nonstop. A notification from Dana popped up. "Call me in the morning. Let's make history." Another came from Razor Milan himself. A single message. A single sentence. A warning. "If you step into the cage with me, I won't stop until you quit." Jake stared at the message. His pulse quickened. But he didn't flinch. He typed back 3 simple words. "See you soon." Jake Paul vs. Razor Milan UFC superfight in discussion. Sports pages, news sites, reaction channels, everyone was talking about it. Clips of Jake dropping 5 MMA champions still spread like wildfire. Analysts debated it. Fighters reacted to it. Fans argued over it. But none of it compared to the chaos outside Jake's hotel. Reporters lined the sidewalks. Cameras flashed nonstop. Fans screamed his name as he stepped out of the SUV. He wasn't walking like an influencer. He wasn't walking like a YouTuber. He walked like someone ready for war. His coach caught up beside him. "You know the entire world thinks you're insane for accepting this fight, right?" Jake smirked. "Good, let them think it." Inside the hotel lobby, the energy shifted. People stared at him differently, less mockery, more respect. Some even moved aside, giving him space. He wasn't trending. He was transforming. The call that sealed Evir White changed his room, closed the door, and immediately called Dana White. Dana answered on the first ring. "You ready to talk business?" he said. Jake didn't hesitate. "I'm in." Dana exhaled, almost in disbelief. "You're really going to fight Razor Milan in the cage?" "Yes," Jake replied calmly. "And I'm going to beat him." Dana didn't laugh. Didn't argue, he just said, "All right then. Let's make history." The world aresa within minutes. Official confirmation hit the internet. Jake Paul vs. Razor Milan UFC, main event date TBA. The reaction was explosive. Some fans cheered. Some cursed. Some predicted Jake's death. Others declared the future of combat sports had arrived. Razor Milan posted a video within an hour, standing in a dimly lit gym, drenched in sweat, eyes cold as ice. "I don't respect influencers. I break them. Jake, you're stepping into my world now. And I promise you, your first MMA fight will also be your last." The video hit 10 million views in 2 hours. But Jake didn't blink. He posted a short response of his own. I've been doubted since day one. And I've shut mouth since day one. Razor, I'm not stepping into your world. I'm dragging you into mine. The internet went nuclear. The message of the commentators everywhere made one thing clear. This wasn't influencer versus fighter anymore. This was fighter versus fighter. Jake trained quietly for the rest of the day, replaying Razor's fights in his head, studying his rhythm, his timing, his signature guillotine. But when he had a moment alone, he stepped outside onto the balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting. The sky glowed orange. People on the street below chanted his name. For the first time in a long time, Jake felt peace, not because he was safe, not because he had already won, but because he had finally found the one thing he'd been chasing his whole life: purpose. That night, a paparazzi camera captured Jake walking back into the hotel gym at nearly midnight. The reporter asked, "Jake, what do you want to say to the millions watching this moment? The people who believe, the people who doubt, what's your message?" Jake didn't stop walking, didn't slow down, didn't look at the camera. He just said, "Respect isn't given. It's taken. And I'm not done taking." The clip exploded across the internet, hitting 50 million views in a day. Jake Paul, the man who fought 5 champions, the man who stood toe-to-toe with a monster, the man who refused to back down, was now marching toward the biggest fight of his life, and the world would be watching.